Hospital medical staff, attention. You scream, I scream, we all scream. Interminably, at different volumes. From the long bursting to silent suffering. From your first breath to your last. The scream is the same scream. For ice cream. This concludes your announcements. Stay tuned for dessert.
This is Derry Public Radio.
Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King book club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Kahn, alongside CM Alexander.
Hello, everyone.
And Benjamin Graham.
Hey, constant readers.
And today we are covering episode 2 of Kingdom Hospital, and we have CM leading our discussion. CM, take it away.
Thanks, Josh. Before we get started, I want to take a minute to remind everyone that we are recording remotely during the shelter-in-place, so please forgive our audio quality for these Kingdom Hospital episodes. Okay, so in episode 1 of Kingdom Hospital, we met our main characters, because that's kind of how you do it, and one of them got run over by a truck, and we met a metaphysical anteater, Aunt Bear, and a ghost named Mary, and some pretty cool stuff happened. It was a fun episode. And in this episode, I think we start this off arguably in the best spot that we could possibly start it off.
Is that because Stegman gets shit on some more immediately?
Yeah, because we get even more of this goddamn scene that would not end last episode. Yeah, we pick up immediately back with the street toughs that were lightly mocking Stegman on the street as he was parking his car. And an old man kicks his car and goes, "Ugh!" And it's something.
Andy takes the bag off of the sign, the handicap sign. So hopefully he'll get a ticket. Damn it. Shouldn't do that.
Oh God, I hope every episode there's just one point that comes back to see the progression of his car.
And those same 4 people standing in a line
still
for no
minding their
reason.
own business.
Yeah.
And this guy, we see him again later, but he gives the hooligans a high five, which I kind of appreciated. So this episode, surprisingly, I thought it would take place like maybe the next day or something. It opens very shortly after the doctor's meeting comes to a close.
It's literally seconds later, because the last episode ended with this earthquake, and it starts back up with Stegman and Ed Begley Jr., whatever his character's name is.
Jesse James, dude.
Of course. Of course. A super fitting name for a character that's just kind of a goofball.
I'm liking him more and more, and I don't know if I'm going to regret admitting that or not. So Stegman and James are discussing the frequency of the earthquakes. They've had 3 so far in the last year, which means that we've seen 2 of them.
I think he means not counting today, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, that's a good. I did not catch that. That is a weird way to put that. We've had 2 or 3. Well, we have 2 today. Yeah. Okay. What's happened once before?
It's been a busy day for earthquakes.
Stegman is there to complain about Dr. Hook. What did you guys think about Jesse's response?
The fact that Jesse doesn't give a fuck.
He's like, well, my son would say illness sucks. A lot of people get sick. End of conversation. But I mean, and I thought it was the end of the conversation because this first like 10 minutes of this episode, or maybe it's a whole episode and I just got used to it, cuts so many times between storylines that I kept, like, I was making furious, disjointed, weird notes because I'm like, wow, well, I know Stegman's a dick, but he just really dismissed him hard. And then we come back to them like 3 more times.
No, I think it makes sense that Jesse James has Hook's back. Like, you can tell they have a relationship, and Stegman's hissy fit is not going to derail that.
We cut hard to Mr. Hit and Run. He is singing the Red Dragon Tattoo song, which is what Peter was listening to when he got hit. And I think it was on Hit and Run's radio at the time. I think they were both listening to it at once.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least that's the way it went with the way they edited it.
Okay.
It sounded like it was coming through his stereo and through the Discman.
He is at his home just singing, having a good time, super high, drunk, something. And he is climbing up a ladder to do some work on his roof. And I was like, why does he have white stickers all over his body?
Yes. What are those patches?
I assumed they were like Nicorette patches.
I thought they were painkillers.
But they are all over him.
Yeah.
And he is busy. They could be painkillers because he is doing the worst inebriated acting. Like,
you think so?
Like a high school play where one character is supposed to be drunk and they're like, well, I've never been drunk, but I think it looks like this.
Funny you say that, because that's exactly how I am when I'm drunk.
You get drunk and decide to do some roofing?
Every damn time.
We have to hide the ladders when CM gets drunk.
An officer pulls up. We finally learn Hit and Run's name. It's Dave. And the cop's there to talk about the accident. And Dave is just exhausting to watch and listen to. And he's so drunk that he accidentally talks himself into admitting right to the cop what he did.
Okay. It's not even... He doesn't have to talk himself into it,
well,
because
no,
it's literally
that's not the right word.
The first thing he says. It's the writing is like the cop's like, so your car's smashed up. What's that about? And he's like, well, I didn't hit that artist. Oh shit! And then he falls off a roof.
Yeah, man, that header off the roof is pretty awesome.
Okay, did he jump or did he fall?
He fell.
I think he fell. But more importantly than that is we go from that scene, we cut to the ambulance, the ambulance paramedics
but first,
from the last episode.
Before that happens, though, when he falls, his dog basically calls him a dipshit, which I guess, so in the first episode, I didn't give a second thought to animals being able to talk. I was like, oh, that's cool. But when his dog talked, I'm like, well, now this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there's a certain point where you're like, okay, is this just an artistic license? Are we not supposed to think about this as much as we are?
Right.
It's just weird. And it happens later on in the episode, which we'll get to. Anyway, we then cut to the paramedics from the last episode, whatever their names are. They come and they're making a big deal. They're like, oh my God, this is so much like yesterday when we got that artist. It's so similar. It's different. No, it's not.
It's literally another accident. You are paramedics in an ambulance.
A guy fell off his roof? Oh my God. Does that remind you of that guy that got hit by a van? No. Why would it?
What if he fell off the roof onto his own van?
I mean, it almost looked like he did.
Yeah.
Almost.
2 people killed by the same van. What is this, Van Christine?
Ooh.
My other problem, I don't know if you guys caught this, that when they have the guy, he's like flatlining and they're doing CPR and stuff, and it's not working. And one of the one of the paramedics goes, hey, it's not working. I'm going to try some epi. What? I'm not a doctor.
Neither are they.
But hurry, give him some epinephrine in case he's allergic to falling off the roof. What? I don't know. I'd really love to. I'm gonna call my dad's a nurse. I'm gonna call him and ask about the medical accuracy of this show.
Ironically, Peter Rickman is allergic to getting hit by vans.
All right, we cut back again with Stegman and James, and he is doing the thing I love him for, just trying to get his merch out there. He's so excited and genuine about it, and he's like, oh, Dr. Stegman, isn't this awesome? And Stegman is like, no.
We still don't know what the fuck this morning air thing is.
No idea.
He's excited because he's like, this button, I added sun rays to show that it's a new morning at Kingdom Hospital.
I feel like it's just a morale booster, like sales thing. I don't think there's anything behind it. I think he's just trying to push off these like almost like patches or buttons. Like, hey guys, you earned a patch because you're being positive today.
Here's my theory. Dr. Jesse James is starting a podcast.
It is super weird that this hospital has merch.
Oh, and then they do the thing that I hate.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I wish you guys could see what Ben just did. Actually, I don't because it's horrible.
We're video conferencing this episode, so we can annoy CM as much as we want.
And I should clarify, I just hate dumb gestures that are fucking stupid. All other gestures are fine. Anyway.
This show has these moments of like cartooniness, like with the talking animals.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about Hook's pants being unzipped.
That was hilarious. They're unzipped for so long.
And it becomes such a big deal that affects nothing. But it's like just a weird cartooniness. I really wish every single time Dr. James did his little blowing on his thumb that it made a whistle noise. I wish it would go or just make a weird kazoo noise. What is this show? It needs more nonsense.
All right, hear me out. What if he had a fake hand that was also a flute?
Why? Yeah, what if that? Sure.
Like that's his dream, and he's just like wishfully practicing.
This has gone off the rails so hard. This episode jumps around so much, I do not have a good segue for this. So we are back with who I initially labeled as a construction worker, but he's a custodian at the hospital. He was driving like a forklift or something, and he's the one who kicked. Reason. Yeah, he's the one who kicked Stegman's car to shut off the car alarm. And so now I'm like, okay, I get why he hates him, because he probably has had dealings with him because he works in the hospital. And now we are with a sick little girl, and now we're back with Dave in the ambulance. So literally, that's how that happens.
The sick little girl. I expected her to exhibit some powers, because she's just like catatonic, and she's being fed by a nurse and staring at Mr. Magoo.
Do we know why she's catatonic yet? Did they mention it, or did I miss it?
No, we don't know who that is. It's just This is the first time we've seen this little girl. But like kids with mental disabilities in King stories usually end up having powers. So. Right.
Ben, you said something that made me feel like I figured something out later. I'm going to jump real quick, and then we're going to come back to where we are. She was watching Mr. Magoo. Is that who comes to the hospital later to visit the children's ward?
No, not at all. First of all, Mr. Magoo isn't German.
Not in this universe.
Second of all, that ghost did not seem to be blind, which is Mr. Magoo's whole thing. Wasn't bald. Like wasn't a cartoon.
Okay, fine. You know what? We'll figure out later whether this is true or not.
It's only episode 2. Who knows?
Could come
Mr.
back.
Magoo might show up. Yogi Bear, episode 5. Who knows?
Was this made by Hanna-Barbera?
Okay, so we are with Dave in the ambulance, and he is not alone.
I love that, like, they finally get his heart to beat again, and he's alive. He comes to just in time to see Ant Bear, and then dies again.
Oh yeah, and Ant Bear is like, "No way, man, you're gonna die." Did he make his heart stop, or did he just predict the future?
I don't think he made his heart stop. I just think he's like waiting, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ant Bear has some sort of sense about life and death.
And now we're with Otto, who's being controlled by his dog.
That's okay. That's my question. Can he hear his dog? Because, I mean, some people talk to their pets and, have the answers in their brain or whatever. And it could just be lucky, but
it just
I don't
makes
know.
me wonder how many times I've talked to my cats and I've said what I think they're saying. And they're like, yeah, she can hear me. That's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah, it's another weird scene where Otto sees, what's his name? The orderly.
Bobby,
whose mother is Sally the psychic. And he calls him and he says, "Hey, I got coffee for you. Come hang out with me." because you're my best friend, I guess. And Bobby says, no, I got to get upstairs. My mom's about to have a seance. Normal.
Yeah.
And the dog looks up from his bowl, and we hear him say, I have what is it? It's something weird. A prune Danish, big boy.
Yeah.
And then Otto looks over at the dog, looks at Bobby, and goes, I got a prune Danish too, big boy. And it's like, first of all, don't say that to him.
That's what his mom calls him.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Just something to pay attention to, I guess, and keep in mind, see where that goes.
Okay, here's the thing. If this show wasn't as enjoyable as it is, I feel like we would be ripping it apart for some of these things.
We would be.
Oh, absolutely.
But this show is so, for as much as we're making fun of some of these things, at its core, this show is so enjoyable and it's so easy to watch.
It is extremely watchable. And all of the weirdness adds to it so much. One of my favorite things about this episode didn't actually come from the episode. When I watch a lot of stuff, I like to have the IMDb page open because I'm a huge nerd. On the IMDb page for Kingdom Hospital, I was scrolling through, reading the trivia, checking the cast and everything. But at the bottom, there are reviews, user reviews. And there's a user review. I wish I had it up right now. The user review compares this show. It says, this show does what a great show should and lets the viewer think for itself. Like other great, weird, very intellectual shows like Twin Peaks and Cop Rock.
I'm not familiar with Cop Rock. Is it an intellectual show?
Cop Rock was a show in the 90s, I believe, that lasted 5 episodes maybe, because it was a police procedural, by the books police procedural, but also a musical.
No.
It is one of the notoriously worst shows ever put on TV. And this rando on IMDb compared it to Twin Peaks and Kingdom Hospital. And that's hysterical.
Stay tuned, listeners, for the 3 of us to review that show on our Patreon.
It'll just be you and Ben. I hate musicals.
Nope, you're in this.
Nope.
Ben, did you enjoy getting to see your nurse faint again?
Absolutely. The second... They were operating on Hit and Run guy? Dave?
Yeah.
And blood sprayed on her and she just drops.
It was a very cool visual. It was completely ridiculous that this huge, perfect line of blood sprays up and she just goes down and no one reacts to it.
What do you guys think about the fact that they're going to put Dave in with Peter?
I was very excited about that. I didn't know what could come of it, but the idea that them being in the same room, it reminded me of Apt Pupil.
Yeah, and I certainly thought that it was going to last longer than it did. We'll get to that. Oh, here's where we meet Mr. Magoo in the flesh. He has crossed over from the cartoon world, much like Brad Pitt. So new EMT is getting a soda, and he's looking around like he's feeling something, like he has an intuition or he's spooked, and no one is there. And then a second later, impossibly, because he would have seen him coming down the hall or had heard his footfalls, an old man appears. And he's like, in a German accent, tell me where they took the children. And he has
Will you please try a German accent for that line? I'd be really interested to hear it.
Tell me where they took the children.
Nailed it.
I have terrible...
Not bad.
Thank you. No, that was actually pretty good.
Cutting that out. And he has a very, very old school doctor bag. And EMT tells him, and Josh, help me on this, that pediatrics is on the 7th floor. EMT guy looks totally disturbed. And then he walks away and doesn't tell anybody that there might be a creep after kids in the hospital.
That is standard operating procedure, yes.
Oh, okay. That's the answer I thought you were going to give.
The weirder you are, the more of a wide berth everyone gives you.
Was it just me, or was the old man digitally sepia toned?
Yes, I felt that same way. I couldn't place it until you just said that, but something about him visually looked just off.
That's why I thought he was a cartoon. God, you guys.
Fair enough.
I think this is our final shot, and so far nothing else comes of it. We're back with the little girl who we saw earlier who is being force-fed, and she is, or I guess spoon-fed. She wasn't being force-fed. That's pretty harsh. She's like rocking back and forth in the dark, like she's waiting for the ghost doctor that the EMT just sent up there.
Yeah, and then, nope, nothing. That's for a later episode, I guess.
Now we're in the operating room with Dave, and Nurse faints, like you guys said, and Mary is there too. She is nearby watching the procedure. So we get more of Sally in this episode, which I thought was interesting.
Oh boy. I want to talk about Sally for a moment. Now, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. The reason, okay, not only she wants to correct whatever essence is happening in the hospital, but the reason she is gathering these patients is because they are the patients that are dying, and the dying are powerful because they have a connection. Their connection to the other side is already being established. So she's only gathering for the séance those who are in the worst health to do this. Is that the vibe you guys got?
Yes.
I kind of missed that. I like that though. To me, it felt more like grown-up It situation. Like all these people who had this prior experience maybe coming back to finish something or take care of something.
Yeah, but none of them except for Sally have any interest really in this. I think the other people are only there because it's something to do.
Well,
no one really seems like they seem interested enough to participate, but not like anything's actually going to happen.
Maybe she woke them up from nap.
That could be.
Yeah, people who have just taken a nap are closer to the other side because the connection is already being established, I guess.
Sleep is where the veil is the thinnest.
That almost checks out.
It almost does.
Later on, we see after this might be skipping ahead. I do not remember because this episode is edited so crazy. But later on, we have Dave brought in to this room, and we hear the voiceover of Hook from last episode saying, like, the inside of the human mind is the biggest, scariest haunted house of them all. And it does like a crazy zoom in to his face, but then into his brain, and then ends up in the old kingdom where he's running around and seeing all kinds of crazy, scary stuff. But he's not dying, so maybe the old kingdom is dreamland. I don't know what I'm talking about.
We're going to keep it in case that's right.
It's a sound theory.
So it's séance time. Not yet, because we got to jump a few more times.
God damn it.
Lenny starts talking. Okay, guys, does Lenny have vampire eyes? He has, I swear to God.
He has very scary eyes.
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
like yellow with dark pupils. Okay, thank you. So he says that someone's right behind him, and it's the Emperor of Ice Cream. Do you remember where we most recently read about the Emperor of Ice Cream on our show?
Of course.
It was Salem's Lot.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's
not as exciting as I thought it would be.
It's a poem about being dead. So
there are so many interpretations for that poem, though. We didn't really like dig into that when we covered it in Salem's Lot, because arguably it was not the most interesting thing that we could cover in those episodes. There's a lot of I looked it up and read the poem again, and there's so much discussion on like the true meaning of that poem.
Well, hit us with something.
The most common thread of it seems to be that the Emperor of Ice Cream is death. Like that's the most obvious answer, because ice cream, just like life, is fleeting, and you should enjoy it while it is there. And that seems to be where this interpretation of that comes from.
I remember something about it being about being dead. I don't know.
Well, like it's if I remember right, it's kind of framed around like a wake.
Yeah.
And that's where all this symbolism comes from, is that this wake where you are mourning the death of someone, the ice cream is the representation of life, because it's, have the ice cream while it's still here. Live life while you still can live life. Because if you wait and never eat the ice cream, you're never going to get to the ice cream. Guys,
Sure.
I want ice cream.
That sounds as right as anything. Ooh, I just got ice cream delivered today.
You
All right,
bitch.
anyway.
All right, so Lenny asks Sally if they are going to make the circle, and she says that there's someone here who needs them. And rather than going into the seance, we got to cut away back to Peter, who I thought would be, like awake, but he's apparently still kind of coming in and out of whatever possibly dreamlike state that he's in. And Mrs. Rickman is...
Natalie's really upset, but she's really checking out that Hook dong.
She can hardly focus on what Dr. Hook is telling her because his fly's unzipped.
Also, Peter notices that his fly is down and his eyes are closed.
Yes. What is the deal with that?
I don't understand.
So Dr. Hook's prognosis is quite different than it was the day before. Oh, God. Okay, I'm sorry. The best line in the episode, in all the episodes so far, is I giggled like a child when Peter said, "Who gave you a license to sell hot dogs?" In reference to Dr. Hook's open fly.
Yes.
That is definitely the kingiest line of this episode. I can so clearly see King sitting at his big writing desk, writing the script of this episode, and just like smugly smiling to himself after writing that line of like, that's hilarious. I am very funny.
And he is right.
Dr. Stegman interrupts at this point as Dr. Hook is trying to talk to Mrs. Rickman, and even Peter thinks that Stegman is an idiot. Okay, seance time. Do you guys love the idea of just a group of old folks in a hospital room somewhere having a seance? Wouldn't you love to stumble on that?
Yes, I had not thought of it like that. But now I'm imagining just like being in a hospital and opening the wrong door, and there's just a ton of old folks sitting around a Ouija board or whatever.
That would make my day.
Fuck, you guys are having a better day than I am.
That is a story I would ride for years. Okay, but before we get to the seance, I was wrong again. Dr. Stegman is giving Hook a ton of shit for Sally's MRI.
It's so smug. And this is like one of the few times that I'm on board with Stegman.
Really?
Because because she didn't need the MRI.
Okay, because I was going to ask you about what Dr. Hook said about the thing they see.
The UBO, the unidentified bright object. Because this is a King book, it likely will turn out to be something. Or not a King book, it's King script. So it's likely going to end up meaning something, but odds are, like, it's just something, it's a made-up excuse to justify his scan for an MRI that he should have known was not necessary or needed because she's a hypochondriac.
Yeah, this is definitely a way more save the cat than anything that would happen in the real world. It's just they need an excuse to show, okay, Dr. Hook is the good guy and he's going to fight for the underdog and stand up for his patient. Is Stegman technically maybe right? Doesn't matter, because that doesn't help the story.
That is
even
true.
if he's right, he's still an asshole.
For sure.
Oh yeah, the fact that he tried to use it as to obviously rub it in his face to the point where he pulled him away from a patient just to do it and make an example out of him just shows the kind of person Stegman is.
Super unprofessional to do something like that.
Right.
So before Stegman is going to drag Hook along to confront Sally, before we get to see the seance, we are back in Peter's room, and he recognizes Dave as they bring him in, and Aunt Bear shows up and gets a little bit scary.
Yeah, it's a little spooky. It's trying to figure out what the correlation between Rickman and Aunt Bear really is, because he's obviously not just an observer, because he's already kind of interfered, and he'll interfere further as this episode goes.
I thought that Peter had brought Ant Bear to life somehow with his painting. And so I was thinking in the first episode, I was thinking of Ant Bear as tied specifically to Peter, but this episode made me question whether he's actually tied to Peter or Peter just sees him that way because of his painting.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but I don't think he can be because Ant Bear also has some sort of relationship and connection to Mary, the little girl ghost, and Peter doesn't know anything about Mary yet, right?
Right.
So if Ant Bear came from Peter, that would mean that he has some sort of connection to the ghosts of the hospital, and we haven't been shown that yet.
Yeah, or his particular kind of shine, which allows him to bring things he paints to life, makes them so real that a ghost could interact with them. Like it's on the same level as whatever universe or dimension ghosts exist in.
All of that makes exactly as much sense as Otto talking to his dog. So I would buy
let's go with
I'd
it.
buy any.
Let's talk about the scene with Stegman and Sally, because I know she's a hypochondriac and I know Stegman's right, but Jesus Christ. He's really shitty about it. Like, not professional at all. You can tell somebody they've done something wrong. You can, I guess, quote unquote, put them in their place and still have class and grace about it. And he had none of that.
He is more interested in using Sally as more ammo against Hook. He doesn't give a shit about Sally. His idea is that if he goes in and he makes a big embarrassing spectacle kicking her out, that it's just going to like demoralize Hook even further and make him more and more embarrassed. She's just a means to an end.
I completely agree. He seems like the kind of person that if Hook had waited and would have fucking bowed at his feet and, said, "Can I give this lady an MRI? This is your call. You're the big man on campus." Stegman wouldn't have fucking cared. But it is because Hook went behind his back, disrespected him in the middle of this meeting, that this is purely revenge. It has nothing to do with Sally at all.
Absolutely.
And it should have literally everything to do with Sally because she is the patient. She is the important one in this moment.
One other thing I want to bring up to this scene, in the lead up to Stegman busting into this room and yelling at an old lady, she is in the middle of the séance and she is saying, "There's someone coming. There's someone coming, and they want someone in this circle. He's tall and blonde and a dick," and all of this. And just as before it cuts back and forth between her saying this and him like walking down the hall lit very darkly and menacingly. It's, where's this Sally woman? And she says, "He means me harm," just as he busts in. Is this setting up Stegman to be more truly evil than right now he's like bureaucratically evil, he's an evil of the system. Is he going to turn into some like actual big bad?
I took it as he will be sort of an evil that is without intent, but through his unwillingness to be flexible or to believe when I assume, things are going to come to a head, he's going to cause harm.
It's going to be our Jack Hoskins.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
maybe we finally
little...
coined that term. Makes it so much easier to explain.
One more thing I want your guys' thoughts on. Ben, you mentioned that we are cutting back and forth between Sally beginning her séance and Stegman dragging Hook and everyone who is nearby along to, have his moment. I was kind of hoping, because of the way that she was talking about him, we knew she was talking about Stegman because we were cutting back and forth. I kind of wanted us to not see him making that journey and just have her talking about the scary, pitiful creature who means her harm, and then him bursting through the door. I think that would have been more tense than...
It would have been more tense, but it wouldn't have been as funny. And I think that was almost played to be more humorous than anything else.
It's interesting you say that, because I feel like this show so far walks a very fine line between when to be funny and when to be serious. That it shouldn't be able to pull off, but it somehow does.
This show has King's sense of humor. very, very evident. I feel like King books do this a lot, where there will be moments of like, is King trying to tell a joke right now in the middle of this, like, what should be a very tense or scary book? And I feel like this show has that in spades.
All right, so we are seance interrupted, so we cut back to Dave, and Dave is in the Old Kingdom, and he's being chased by something that is having a physical effect on his body in New Kingdom.
Speaking of sequences that should be scary and aren't, yeah, he's in the Old Kingdom, and he's running through these crazy hallways that we've seen Peter in before, and he's seeing all of these visions. He sees Peter hanging from a noose, and he looks up and says, "This is your fault." He sees the old man from the séance who yells about the Emperor of Ice Cream again,
Yeah.
which is very weird. But the thing that completely undercuts this entire segment is the ending.
By the end, you mean in the real world end of this?
No, the final thing he sees in his dream, the Emperor of Ice Cream.
Oh, yeah, where it's the vampire boy in
It's
an
Paul.
ice cream outfit. It's Paul. Sorry. It's classic Paul in his ice cream outfit.
It's the scary vampire ? Boy from the last episode. He's literally dressed like an ice cream man from like a 50s sitcom.
Yes,
And he holds up and he's like, what does he say? Would you like a icicle or a fudgesicle?
Yeah.
And then hisses, and that's the end of the sequence.
Yeah.
Wasn't that how your guys' ice cream man always gave you your ice cream? You made your choice and then he hissed at you?
Yeah, but I grew up next to a prison.
I was going to say, CM, did you grow up in Night Vale? What are you talking about?
Does Aunt Bear tear out Dave's heart?
No.
What does he do?
He sabotages his breathing tube.
Oh,
Is
okay.
that what he does?
Mine was
Yeah.
cooler.
He's got like a trach tube and he pulls it out so he stops getting oxygen. So, because I assume my first thought is it makes it sound like he's chewing through his body. But when you think about how that would manifest in the real world, I think maybe he is just because he pulls away with something in it. And I think it's part of the tube.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not clear. That segment was not.
Yeah, I had to go back and
obvious
watch
what
it a couple times because it didn't make any sense.
And this next part is cool, though. Peter speaks, and he says, "I heard the bell. Her name is Mary." And then he kind of goes back under.
It's super creepy. I'm really curious. As we get further, I'm very excited to learn more about Mary and her bell and what this... Because we know the connection with the hospital comes from the fact that she died in the fire. Sure, we know that narratively because of the old man voiceover from episode 1. But I'm just really curious to see what is this connection? Why is this connection?
I really miss old man voiceover. Where was he this episode?
I think he might just be gone, man. I think that might be it for old man voiceover.
That's a bummer.
We forgot to mention one thing, and it's kind of important because it
God.
leads to...
Is it the date?
Oh, no, man. Oh, no, I'm going to get to that. I have stuff to say.
Okay, cool.
Great.
So in this confrontation, because we're going back and forth so much, Stegman just berates Sally, and he tells Hook that he needs to discharge her. And if he's not going to discharge her, then Brenda, who pops a hard boner for Stegman every time he acts like a jerk, then Brenda's supposed to.
There are two nurses that seem... They aren't so much characters as they are... I don't know. Their only characteristic is this is Stegman's nurse and this is Hook's nurse, and that's it.
Neither of them are great.
No.
Now, my favorite scene, because I think supports my theory from last episode about Elmer and Dr. Hottie. Elmer sets up, and I do not know how I feel about this scene, but in the morgue with dead bodies around, he sets up a candlelit, pretty nice looking dinner, like with wine and everything. I like, way to reach for someone way out of your league, Elmer.
That's the thing about the scene is Elmer a creep?
Yes.
Yes
yeah, I think
or
so.
no?
I think he
Yes.
probably is, yeah.
Probably. But
But she can get up and leave, and she doesn't.
yeah, he doesn't seem lecherous. He isn't like drooling all over himself. He's like, I've set up this very nice dinner in a real weird way, and I'm being kind of like upfront about I am hitting on you. But it never seemed like she's kind of into it, right?
I can't tell if she's into it or irritated.
Okay, Elmer is Harold Lauder, but
Is he?
okay, hear me out. There are similarities. Maybe it's not a direct one-to-one correspondence, but his attitude to me came across with the same entitlement that Harold always came off with. Like, he sets up this dinner, and the fact that she would even consider not staying for it bothers him, and he almost, I don't know, he doesn't exactly bully her into staying by any means, but he really, she's trying to leave, and he's like, no, just one drink, or just like little things that are kind of taking away her agency a little bit. I felt like
He doesn't take no for an answer, and that's what's creepy about it.
Yeah.
Everything else is like this really sort of out there effort that he's made that, either is going to scare someone away or charm them, but then he doesn't accept when she's like, no, not interested.
Right. And it's that no part that is that entitlement of like, I went to all this work. I can't believe you wouldn't want to stay here for this and at least hear me out.
And it leads us to our very problematic TV and movie trope of, you know what? He was right. All he had to do was force her to stay, and look at, she's kind of into it.
True love.
Yeah. Well, you've convinced me. Fuck this guy. I'm really hoping, like I told you guys, I watched this show back when it was on, and I was in like middle school. That was a weird choice. Good job, my parents. There are a few small details that I remember. I'm really hoping I'm remembering Elmer's story arc correctly, because we're going to get to an episode that is going to blow you guys' fucking minds. It's great.
I can't wait for that. We are getting close to the end of this second episode of Kingdom Hospital. Most important thing, I think, in the series so far, Dr. Hook is escorting Sally out of her hospital room down the hall, and she's trying to bring him in the loop on the ghost shenanigans. But more importantly, for the first time ever in this poor woman's life, she enters an elevator with another living human being.
Yeah, she's as they're going down, she's just like, there's fucking ghosts. And you know it, Hook. And he's never disagrees. He's a chill-ass doctor.
Yeah.
But then they actually hear Mary crying. He hears it too, and he stops the elevator. What did you guys think? Because normally, and I know it's a mini-series, so this probably explains it, but I like to pretend I don't know that. Normally, you would get this character coming around much later. And he's like, wait, I also heard a ghost girl. Hold on. Hold the elevator. Ha.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Like, if this had been planned out as a regular series, having the main characters on board with the supernatural elements so quickly means it's got to escalate into some pretty crazy areas. And I would be very interested in finding out what the fuck those are.
So Sally tells Dr. Hook that this is not, I mean, they both know they're nowhere near the children's ward, so it can't be someone from there. And she's like, you know that this is not a living human voice. This is the voice of someone coming from the Swedenborgian space. And both Dr. Hook and I at the same time go, what? Okay, so I didn't know this, but it is a philosophical and religious doctrine that was created by a guy named Emanuel Swedenborg. And it's about the spiritual structure of the universe, and there's some Jesus in there too. And that's all I know. Do you guys know anything about it?
Absolutely not.
She said it, and exactly. I laughed when Hook was like, what? And I was like, yep, that's right. That's the right reaction. And then I immediately forgot what it meant or what she said, because I assumed it was just more nonsense. I did not know that was a real thing. It's kind of cool.
Dr. Hook does something that, I don't know, did you guys anticipate his next move?
I thought it was really ballsy, and it's really cool. Like, everything we've known about Dr. Hook is that he is a man of action.
Yeah.
So it was really cool that he just is like, fuck it. If there's a voice coming from up here, I'm going to follow this lead and see where this voice is coming from. But I didn't expect it. But as soon as it started happening, I was really excited that he was climbing up on top of the elevator.
And he does definitely find something there. Well, and then he finds some more things. Or some things find him.
He sees the doll that we got glimpses of in episode 1 that's sitting on top of the elevator and has no reason to be there. And as he's holding it and looking at it, Mary's face just appears in the darkness and scares the shit out of him, and he drops the doll down the elevator shaft.
Which is apparently bottomless.
Yeah.
How tall is this fucking hospital?
Well, that's Ben. You figured it out. That's where the old kingdom is.
It's not sleep. It's a literal place.
It's the basement.
Well, we know there's at least 7 floors because that's where pediatrics is.
So that's where the episode ends. But we know that Dr. Hook is safe because Mary's bell is not ringing. Couple questions for you guys about this episode. The EMT sees the ghost doctor, I presume. Where did that guy go and what's he doing? Because we don't see him again.
If I had to guess, I would say he definitely has something to do with the comatose girl, because they're introduced pretty much back to back to each other. And she also disappears from the rest of this episode. So they have to be involved somehow.
And what do you guys think Dr. Hook is going to do with Sally now that he knows she's right? Because I assume she's going to try to get him to let her stay and do what she needs to do.
I think that's why we have the whole discussion about the MRI, and we go into that. I think that it's going to be a matter of him now. He's gonna like either run another test on her and be like, well, you dismissed the MRI, so before we kicked her out, I decided to, make us not liable. We did this, and then fake some results or something and like get her admitted or something.
Last question for you two. Will Elmer and Dr. Hottie ever tie the knot?
Oh my God.
I don't know where that subplot is going. It's a subplot that doesn't affect anything, has nothing to do with anything. If it were not there, the episode would not be affected at all.
They are the Harold and Nadine of Kingdom Hospital, and I won't hear any other way about it.
But in a typical hospital show, which I admitted I haven't watched until now, isn't there always some romantic subplot? I mean, are they just fulfilling that part of things?
That's every network show ever made. There has to be a romantic subplot. And I guess if there's going to be a King show, it should be really weird and out of place. So,
like our last King miniseries, romantic subplots.
Yeah. Ugh, I don't want to talk about the Rose Red romantic subplots. But no, I will say, like, it's perfect King to have the first date of a love interest story take place in a morgue. Before we wrap, do you guys want to make any predictions for what might happen in the 3rd episode?
Like I said, I've watched this show, but I remember very, very little of it. So I don't know. I hope they eventually get around to explaining what the hell Paul's deal is. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, me too. I'm really curious to see how he's really tied into all this.
I think next episode, my predictions for next episode, we are going to see Stegman's car. We're going to hear an animal talk, and someone else is going to get moved into Peter's room. Those are my 3 things that are going to happen. If this show is following any pattern, that's it. One of those things. Oh, what if they put Sally in Peter's room?
Oh, that'd be too
Then
perfect.
Everybody's together. Well, that's it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us next time as we cover episode 3 of Kingdom Hospital. For Benjamin Graham and CM Alexander, I'm Joshua Kahn, reminding you, it's terrible to be so ill.
Hey everyone, Sam Alexander here. Thank you for listening to part 2 of Kingdom Hospital. We would love to know what you think of the series on our social media at Derry Public Radio, or send us an email at derrypublicradio@gmail.com. Thank you to everyone who has rated and reviewed us on iTunes, and to our Patreon members for your continued support. You guys rock so much. All of you guys rock so much. I'm going to keep it short and sweet today. We hope that you are all staying safe. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.